Thank you, Governor Simba Arati. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Wilson Pritchard, ICT Executive Director, Logri Chair, Associate Professor at the University of Toronto, and then the name that we are all struggling to pronounce properly, Dr. Titola Akinde Inde. Okay, Executive Director of Logri. Moyo Arewa, Program Director, Logri. The Commissioner General. And of course, my friend, His Excellency Governor Simba Arati. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning once again. I stand here to represent the Deputy President, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, who was scheduled to open this very vital meeting. So I'm here, and my initial remarks will be what he would have wanted to say. And then at the end of the day, after I've put a full stop to his remarks, I'll just say one or two things. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to open this Logri conference and extend the best wishes from the President of the Republic of Kenya, and to thank you for choosing Kenya as your host nation. You are welcome to Kenya. We are honored and proud that the Local Government Revenue Initiative has organized its inaugural conference since its inception in Nairobi, and especially so to launch Logri to the global stage here in Nairobi. In line with the Kenya Constitution, the Public Finance Management Act of 2012, and the County Governments Act of 2012, the place of on-source revenue in enhancing the fiscal economies for our county governments is key to institutionalizing devolution. Property tax accounts for over 25% of the county's on-source revenue. It is the core source of revenue for counties. There is, however, still room for improvement. Indeed, reports from the Commission on Revenue Allocation and the Office of the Control of Budget show that property taxes have huge untapped collection potential. Counties' integrated development plans also show that counties are aware of their responsibilities in the provision of a range of services, from county financial autonomy in the fulfillment of devolution, overcoming constraints in external funding, instilling a civic and constitutional duty in residents to pay towards cost of service delivery and well-being, accountability and efficient revenue management for on-source revenue compliance. Ratepayers and consumers of county services will demand better service delivery from on-source revenue collected. Mismanagement of on-source revenue automatically leads to non-compliance in the collection of on-source revenue and poor service delivery. Better remuneration to county staff because of enhanced on-source revenue will result in increased productivity and better service delivery to the residents. This conference that has brought together government administrators, policymakers, applied researchers to share practical experiences and research insights is long overdue. You are invited to also share challenges, opportunities, and strategies in formulating more progressive and equitable property tax systems in low-income countries. This engagement therefore presents opportunities to enhance own-source revenue by county governments in efforts geared towards meeting fiscal deficits. In the current era of constrained resources, we are optimistic that this conference will stimulate practical discussions to inform policy on property taxation in counties and national government. Lastly, as a country, we are happy that this conference promotes conference tourism. I encourage you to use your free time to sample the diverse culture, food, and dance offered by the people of Kenya. Thank you, and I look forward to your resolutions. It is my honor to formally declare this conference officially open. Thank you. Now, let me just make a few remarks. I feel comfortable having a brief engagement here because, as Simba Arati knows, this is a background we have shared within this space. So I'll just highlight one or two issues around this conference and the issues that you're likely to tackle. First, if you were just to go back into medieval times, property ownership was actually the measure for political rights. If you had property, you could sit on the table and make political decisions. At that time, I believe in the medieval times, property owners were keen to show what they owned. It was a measure of their weight in the political arena. Today, it's the converse. Property owners tend to hide what they own. They don't want to show it because it's synonymous with more taxation. Now, that is where this conference comes in very handy. Because what do we do knowing that it is time for people to raise more revenue and not to hide what they own so that they can pay their rightful share of taxes, the land taxes, whether it's rates, stamp duty, or any other of the taxes that the Commissioner General has highlighted here today. So technology becomes critical. The science that goes into identifying land and what is on that land is absolutely essential. So in your conversation, the issue of how to leverage on technology to make this particular space more productive in terms of revenue generation will become very, very critical. The other thing that one needs to harmonize will be the legal framework. How many pieces of legislation revolve around the tax-related matters on land? I don't know each country has got its own, but you have, here we had the Ratings Act, then there are issues around the land rent, there are issues that, so many pieces of legislation that deal with land. You would have, whether it's the improved site value approach you want to take, or the improved site value, then you have to look at rating for agricultural land, industrial land. If you are in Nairobi, we have seen debates on whether the county government of Nairobi should draw rates from the national park, as an example, the Nairobi National Park. Now, these are very difficult issues to resolve, and I'm sure each country has got its unique. I hear there are 90 representatives from other parts of outside Kenya who are in this hall. You can imagine how different it is in your respective space or domain. How do you harmonize this? In Kenya, we tried to, even through the Constitution, say that you must have a minimum. What is the minimum ownership that one can have in terms of land? We have never actually been able to actualize that aspect of the Constitution, because we are conflicted. You have areas where you have trust land, you have areas where you have community land, and all these are governed by different pieces of legislation. The question then is, how do you approach it from a revenue perspective? This I will leave to you to find solutions for us as we move forward. Then there's also the question of, how do you make your counties competitive? Taxation is elastic. You get to some place and it will snap. Honorable Simbarati has just given some examples of the tension we are going through and the debate that you're going through. And indeed, the president has now made a statement to say, look, if this housing levy is such a controversial issue, because it was pegged at 3%, let us listen to the message that is coming from the people. Why don't we lower it to 1.5%? Because taxation is elastic. So you must manage it so that it doesn't snap. So as you enhance the revenue collection, what we must also figure out is, what would you do as a researcher in this field, or somebody who is supposed to deal with policy here, so that your city, whether it is Nairobi, or whether it is Luanda in Angola, or whether it is Addis Ababa, whatever, Cairo, how do you make sure that you are not taxing investors out of your city? Because with excessive taxation, you can drive them out of town. And if you drive them out of town, you erode your own tax base. So what is the balance that you experts will be exploring to try and figure out that this particular area, what should be the quantum of that? So as you improve the tax collections, as you get more people within that framework, you must also bear in mind that you're also dealing with a major economic issue which needs to be managed carefully. So as I conclude, we in Kenya have to strengthen devolution. It's part of our constitution. And we need to get our counties becoming more robust. And we look forward to a situation where one day the governor of Kisii will be the one lending money to the national government of Kenya. And it can be done because in the past, and Simbarati will bear me out, there's something that went wrong. I don't know what it is. But before we transited to the county governments, we had the Local Government Act, which was governing our entities. And at that time, they were not drawing money from the national government. There was no revenue share. But the same county governments, local governments, were able to pay salaries. Simba Arati is a practitioner in this. In Nairobi, they were able to meet the salary payments for the Nairobi City Council. So what happened when the revenue share mechanism came in? Did we then encourage some measure of laxity? What did we do? So these are issues to look at. Capacity building. This is an area that needs to be done very fast. We have also seen that the county governments, most of them have not been rated. Many areas remain untapped. You need to find a way of accelerating the professionals, fast track them to help that to be done, employ technology so that we can then bring in as many ratepayers as we can. As we said, that was the beginning of the politics. In the medieval times, you know it, it was a question of who are the property owners, and they are the ones who then determined the political direction of a nation. Now, there's a reversal. It is not necessarily the property owners who determine the political direction of a nation. It's the general populace that does that. But then we now must have functioning entities to encourage proper service delivery and to make sure that people can earn what is their worth in terms of being able to improve our education, our healthcare, and all the programs that we ought to when we are in public space. So thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope that the outcome of your conversations will enrich all of us in this area of property taxes and how we can improve that space. Asanteni sana.
To stay for the day, so we'll just take a minute. We all stand while His Excellency takes his exit, or when you're ready, you're free to leave. So Without much further ado, we're going to go into the first session, which is going to focus on property tax and challenges to reforms. It will be moderated by Professor Riel Franzen. Riel is the director of the Africa Tax Institute at the University of Pretoria. And in addition to the many hats that Riel wears as a policy advisor for various entities, including the IMF, the World Bank, and in more than 30 countries in Africa, the Caribbean, Europe, the Middle East, Riel occupies the South African Research Chair in Tax Policy and Governance. And he specializes in land and property taxation. So please welcome with me Riel Franzen, moderating the first session. Okay, while they're taking their seats, we're going to take a photograph with His Excellency. So while the panel takes their seat, we will just take a photograph with His Excellency. Okay?